Welcome to the Patricia Raskin Show, the program that helps you turn obstacles into opportunities, challenges into solutions, and find answers to tough questions. And now, the award-winning powerhouse voice of radio. Here's your host, Patricia Raskin.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show, right here on VoiceAmerica.com, America's Voice. We are in our 22nd year here on Voice America and very proud of it. And this is the program that shows you how to turn your problems into solutions and your obstacles into opportunities and make your dreams come true. And today we have a wonderful husband and wife team talking about a very important subject that most of us are familiar with. The name of the book is An End to Arguing, 101 Valuable Lessons for All Relationships. My guests are Linda and Charlie Bloom. They've been married since 1972. Trained as psychotherapists and relationship counselors, they have worked with individuals, couples, groups, and organizations since 1975 and have lectured and taught at learning institutes throughout the United States and internationally. And they have authored 5 books, including the bestseller, 101 Things I Knew When I Got Married, Simple Lessons to Make Love Last, over 100,000 copies sold, Secrets of Great Marriages, Happily Ever After, and 39 Other Myths About Love. And there are several more books. They have taught at institutes throughout the United States, including Esalen, Apollo, California Institute for Integral Studies, John F. Kennedy University, and they are founders and co-directors of Bloomwork, based in Santa Cruz, California. And their website is bloomwork.com, BLOOMWORK.com. Welcome, Linda and Charlie.
I'm delighted to be with you.
Thanks for inviting us, Patricia.
Yeah. Well, I guess my first question is, do you have you figured all this out? You've been married all these years. This is both your field. You've taught all over the world. Do you have it down perfectly now in terms of argument?
I don't believe in perfection. I believe in excellence. Perfection can make us crazy because it's unattainable. But excellence is attainable, and we have worked long and hard over the decades. There was so much that we didn't know about relationship and a lot that we didn't know about how to handle our differences.
Put in my brief answer, yes, I have worked it all out.
One of the secrets of success is to have humor in the pair. And Charlie is the chief executive officer and in charge of fun and humor.
But I have worked it all out.
We've learned a lot, and we have a lot to learn.
But here's my question. Here's my question. If you had not done this work, let's say you had gotten married, did something else, do you think that your marriage would have lasted as long as it has?
I would have given it about 15 minutes. No, there's no way. There's no way that we ever could have made it through the challenging times and through the ordeals. We've been married for over 50 years.
Wow.
And in that amount of time, it's virtually impossible not to hit some rough spots.
Mm-hmm, of course.
Our second book, The Secrets of Great Marriages, we interviewed a lot of couples who had really stellar marriages. At minimum, the average was 31 years. Every one of them had their share of challenging moments and experiences.
I have a question. Do you think one of the foundations of a positive relationship, or a lasting relationship, I should say, is that you need to have the same values? You need to be on the same page. What do you think about that?
I think it's incredibly important to be aligned in your values. Most of the important ones. We're not completely aligned. Charlie and I are very different in many ways, and we're passionate and intense about the way that we are different. But we have learned over time to make a big space for our differences, our style in being in the world, the way we process information, and even some values difference. But it is an incredible boon to a relationship if you know each other well enough before you choose in to seal the container in the form of a committed partnership or a marriage, that you know what your foundational core values are and they're somewhat aligned.
Yeah. What was the inspiration behind writing this book, An End to Arguing? Were you seeing just a lot of arguing among couples and you felt you had to focus on this particular subject?
Well, yes. I mean, you can't be in this business of helping people with relationships without being exposed to a lot of unskillful dialogue. Because that's essentially what brings people to people like us. That's what motivates them to get some help, because they keep hitting the wall. They keep hitting these places of frustration and pain and disappointment and anger and suffering. So I mean, sometimes people become so despairing that they don't even bother getting help. They get beyond the point where they think that it's even fixable. So we wrote this book because we have being among that group of people who have had our share of differences, particularly in the early years. We learned a few things along the way, and we'll talk about some of them today, but they're basically simple things.
Yeah, I want to ask you, when you said, that you've worked with couples and at some point people give up, they feel there's beyond hope. Do most of them just stay in the relationship and coexist, or do most of them divorce, or some of both?
Large numbers become resigned.
Yes.
And they lower their expectations way down.
Yeah.
And they start brainwashing themselves into thinking nobody really has a good relationship, or it's only for the very lucky few. And too bad I didn't fit in that group, because they don't have the concept of you earn your way into a great relationship. And there's some qualities that you need to develop in yourself. There's some growing up to do, some maturing to do, getting wise, and also some skills. Some communication skills and negotiation skills and repair skills. And so that's a very large group of people that lower their expectations way down. And you know that the divorce rate in the United States is still very high at 50%. We're in California, it's even higher than 50% in California. And the people who give up, the majority of them who divorce never have one marriage counseling session.
Very interesting. Very interesting. What do you believe are the most common causes of arguments in relationships, and how does your book address them?
Well, some people think that arguing means that you have different points of view, and then each person tries to persuade the other person to agree with them or to come over to their side. That's inevitable. I mean, there's just no way that two people can be in a relationship without having differences, because we're all unique. We all have our own version of how to interpret our experiences and how to deal with difficulties. So that's going to happen. I mean, one of the things we say is that differences are inevitable, but arguing is optional. And conflict or arguing occurs when both people are committed not so much to creating an understanding of each other, but they're committed to dominating the relationship in a way that their view prevails. So when you have two people who are both committed to two opposing positions, and neither one of them is willing to adjust their position or disengage from it or consider the validity of another one. That's what we're talking about when we say an end to arguing. Those cycles that keep going over and over again that wear people out. It just kind of, there's just so much of that you can take without feeling despaired and hopeless and, like Linda said, resigned.
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is,
you get out.
Right. So what you're saying is both people then have to be right. Being right is more important than what's happening in the relationship.
Exactly.
And it can be about a myriad of topics, but there are about a half a dozen that are the most popular. People argue about money, powerful symbol of worth and security and so forth. They argue about sex. They argue about rearing the children. Somebody's stricter and somebody's more lenient. In-laws, and particularly about power of decision making. So money, sex, power, the in-laws is also a popular one. But it doesn't really matter what the topic du jour is, that is the irritant. This issue of wanting to be dominant, of wanting to get your way, of wanting to coerce the other person into seeing things the way you see it or changing their behavior. That's when it goes over the line from the healthy interchange to a coercive one, which is arguing and it's destructive.
So here's my question, having said what you said. Do you think because of the way women's roles have changed over the last 30 years, 25 years, inequality in the workplace, inequality or even surpassing men sometimes in income. Do you think that has made a difference in terms of women being able to stand up and saying, no, this is how I feel, where maybe our parents or grandparents didn't do that as women? What do you think?
I think it's had an enormous impact. I think women know that they do not have to stay in a relationship for financial reasons and security reasons, and they want to be an equal to the man in the power and decision making. And I think it's a very positive trend, but I think that there is a lag in the new demand of sharing power well, that is going to require a skill set that has not yet evolved in how to do that well.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in the next segment, but I want to ask you this. Do you find couples who are professional, two doctors, two lawyers, two CEOs, people, let's say a power couple, do you find that there is a lot of problems in this realm with power couples or not necessarily?
I think the potential is higher for there to be conflict and competition in those areas. But I don't necessarily see that is going to predispose couples who are in that situation to be more likely to argue. In terms of, the, professionals, doctors, lawyers, whoever, they usually can, not always, but in order to get to that level of success in your life, you have to be relatively intelligent, and you have to be motivated, and you have to be willing to do the work that enables you to be successful. And some of those same qualities apply to relationships too.
All right, well, we're going to take a break. This is absolutely fascinating. And so we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk to Charlie and Linda Bloom about what are some of those practical techniques that are in the book that we can use to resolve conflicts more effectively. You're listening to the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show right here on VoiceAmerica.com, America's Voice, and we'll be right back.
A little birdie told me Voice America is on X. Follow us at Voice America TRN.
Do you know that over 70% of people with disabilities are not counted in the workforce, with twice the unemployment rate of the non-disabled? Join Joyce Bender, CEO of Bender Consulting Services and a disability leader, as she talks about best practices and newest trends in disability employment on Disability Matters. As a person living with epilepsy and hearing loss, Joyce is an international advocate for disability employment. Tune in on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Variety Channel.
Tune in to The Patricia Raskin Show on VoiceAmerica.com every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time and 11 a.m. Pacific Time. This is the program that helps you turn obstacles into opportunities, challenges into solutions, and find answers to tough questions with the award-winning powerhouse voice of radio, Patricia Raskin. So tune in and call in to The Patricia Raskin Show, Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time and 11 a.m. Pacific Time, right here on the Voice America Variety Channel.
Streaming live, the leader in Internet talk radio, VoiceAmerica.com.
You are listening to The Patricia Raskin Show. If you wish to call into our program today, please call 1-866-472-5788. That number again is 1-866-472-5788. You may also send an email to patricia@patriciaraskin.com. Now, back to The Patricia Raskin Show.
Hi, everyone. We are back. You are listening to the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show, and we are talking to husband and wife team, Charlie and Linda Bloom. And their new book is An End to Arguing, 101 Valuable Lessons for All Relationships. Linda Bloom, LCSW, and Charlie Bloom, MSW, have been married since 1972, over 50 years. They are trained as psychotherapists and relationship counselors, and they've worked with individuals, couples, groups, and organizations since 1975 and have lectured and taught at institutes in this country and internationally. And they have several books, 5 books, including the bestseller, 101 Things I Wish I Knew Before I Got Married. They are founders and co-directors of Bloomwork, based in Santa Cruz, California, and their website is bloomwork.com, BLOOMWORK.com. Welcome back, Linda and Charlie.
Thank you.
Okay, let's talk about what are some of the practical techniques in your book that will help readers resolve and listeners resolve conflicts more effectively.
One of the things that we promote is becoming a black belt listener. People all know that a good relationship requires communication, but they tend to put the emphasis on the speaking, on articulating what we're feeling and what we're needing. Of course, that's important, but I don't think enough attention gets put on committed listening. Really deeply listening and taking in what the other person is saying, watching their facial expression and their body language and their tone, really taking in the message, hearing them deeply, and giving them some response so that they feel heard. A lot of the irritation that people have and the frustration that they have is they're not sure that they're really being received. And when we become black belt listeners, that brings the trust level up and the irritation level down. One of the other really important skills that we're always promoting in our books, in our workshops, and when we're doing counseling with people is be a champion of repair. Because even though you're completely committed to becoming a terrific communicator and negotiator, you are going to have breakdowns. There are going to be misunderstandings. And to be able to have a toolbox full of repair tools, apology, forgiveness, doing a do-over, what I learned from this is all really good practical material that's quite usable. It's not rocket science. This is not necessarily easy, but it is simple techniques that we can get accomplished at.
Well, and these are techniques you can use, in business, in work, in life. I mean, listening in that way, as you said, the black belt listening to me is that listening from the other person's point of view. So I may not like it, I may not agree with you, and I may not do it, but I get it. So at least I can connect with you. That's what I'm hearing you say.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Charlie, anything to add to that? Any words of wisdom to add to that?
I'm totally behind every word that Linda said. And I would say that pretty close to 100% of the people who come to us for counseling in their relationships tell us that they have a communication problem. Like Linda said, they understand communication as being about how you speak, and they don't quite understand that it's really more about the intention behind the communication that's creating the breakdown in their interactions. So one of the things that we always try to promote with people is the whole notion of, before you even open up your mouth when you're in a dialogue with, particularly a dialogue in which there's the possibility for there to be some reactivity on one or both of your parts, is to get clear within yourself, what's my intention? Mm-hmm. What is it that I really want to have happen in this conversation right now? And to be clear about that, just to take a moment, even if you have to, ask for, can you give me a second? I just want to get clear about this. And then express that to your partner. And the intention should have some impact on the relationship itself. And it needs to be something that you, or that this person speaking the intention, can create or support the creation of, rather than, for example, my intention is for you to be a better listener here, or my intention is for you to understand. I want, we really want people to be clear about what's the goal, what's the outcome that you want to have happen here, and then to align yourself with that result and speak and communicate in ways that are designed to create the kind of understanding that will enable both of you to move towards that intent.
Right. And what I'm hearing here is that intent and impact are different. So you can have as you said, you can have the great intention, but if it doesn't land that well, if the impact isn't hitting that person the way you have the intent, it's not going to work. So it's not about the intent so much. So what you're saying here is, when you have the intent, make sure you understand what that impact could be on the person.
Exactly. And you've got to factor that into the equation. And you've got to have some sense of, you need to listen to this person, because that's what's going to tell you how you need to communicate with them in a way that they can best understand what you're saying and not feel threatened or defensive.
And there are some very simple, but not necessarily easy techniques to increase the chances that you will be received by the other person. And it's where you speak from. We sometimes speak of share from your experience, share from your feelings, share from your needs. Yeah. It's very vulnerable to speak from there, and people often are speaking out of their thinking. They're full of opinions which are judgmental, and it alienates the other person, and it brings the trust level lower rather than heightening it and deepening it. If we can be brave enough, this is one of the qualities that we have to cultivate to be able to do this well. We have to be courageous and self-disciplined so that we stay with these very tender feelings, sometimes frightened, feeling insecure, hurt. And when we can speak from these more tender, vulnerable feelings, it creates connection and understanding, not necessarily agreement, but it does create connection, which usually calms people down when they feel met and understood.
And part of the reason that people don't do that, as you said, is because they feel vulnerable and they're afraid they might get stomped on. So they don't share those. They don't say, here's how I really feel. Instead, they say, look what you just did, which is usually alienates people.
Right.
So how do you help people to feel safe in their vulnerability?
Yeah. Well, that's the key. I mean, you really nailed it, Patricia, when you used the V word.
Mm-hmm.
Because all defensiveness is activated by fear. And, in one of our books, we talk about how sometimes people will say to their partner, you're being defensive. Well, maybe you're giving me reason to feel like I need to be defensive.
Mm-hmm.
Defensiveness, the problem with defensiveness isn't just that it's not a nice thing to do. It's not a productive thing to do. It's that when a person is being defensive, they can't really hear you because their focus is on protecting themselves. And so it conflicts with the desire to create understanding can conflict with the need for protection. And so if I feel like I need to protect myself, it's going to be really hard for me to listen to you because my focus is going to be on making sure that I don't get hurt.
Right.
So we want to respond to each other in ways that don't create the feeling that I'm in danger here, that this is an emotionally dangerous situation, that this is something that I need to be careful with, and which kind of is counterintuitive to what we feel like we need to do sometimes when we feel threatened. So that's why Linda said one of the words that she used was to be courageous, to be brave. It takes courage to disarm yourself of the defenses that we use when we feel threatened, when we get vulnerable, when we feel that we're at risk of getting hurt emotionally. That's tough.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the things that we need to learn to do, to be responsible to ourselves without shutting down the channels of communication.
Right. Unless we're with a partner that does stomp on us, that is abusive, that really does hit us hard when we're vulnerable. That's different, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't mean that you just open your heart to people, even when they have demonstrated that they're not going to be respectful to you.
Right.
We have a chapter, it's a very important chapter in the book about how critical agreements are. And when a couple makes a formal agreement with each other that they are going to create a context of safety and security as the foundation of their relationship, that is a mighty contract that they're making. And we always invite people to really look and see if you're going to carry through, and don't agree to anything unless you're committed to it.
Yeah.
And part of the agreement is that we will be honest with each other. We will give each other feedback if we're hurt or disappointed, and that we want the other person to respect. When we give that feedback, we'll try to be as responsible and caring about the way we offer it. But this combination of safety and security and challenge, that you need both of those. Too much safety and security, it's going to be a boring, stagnant relationship. Too much challenge, have too much heat, it could overheat and burn to death. You need to have that balance. And when a couple is in agreement that they want to commit to that, they will have regular check-ins with themselves and each other to keep recalibrating that nice, delicate balance that keeps the relationship healthy. Things are not accumulating. They haven't, been swept under the rug to the point where sometimes they trip you up and you have an explosion out of that. Mm-hmm. You're staying current because you want to protect the well-being of the relationship.
Okay. On that note, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about advice for couples who may feel stuck in repetitive arguments or cycles of conflict. And we'll also later in the program ask Charlie and Linda to share some stories, anecdotal stories about couples they've worked with and some success stories and things that have, where people have turned their obstacles into opportunities. So you're listening to the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show right here on VoiceAmerica.com. We'll be right back.
Voice America is on LinkedIn. Connect with us today. Psych Up Live with host Dr. Suzanne Phillips offers a psychological perspective on coping with common and current life issues. This show addresses topics as varied as marital stress, insomnia, depression, raising teens, campus violence, and building self-resilience. Listen in as Dr. Phillips and her guest experts share the latest in books, findings, and information that will inform and enhance your life journey. Psych Up Live is heard every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Variety Channel.
Get Unchained. Tune in every Wednesday for Unchained TV on the Voice America Variety Channel. Featuring nationally recognized best-selling author, TV journalist, and the founder of the Unchained TV free streaming network, Jane Velez Mitchell. This program takes you inside a trending lifestyle that's the next wave of human evolution. It all starts on your plate. If you want to revolutionize your life, get happier, more energized, then discover the secret. Tune in to Unchained TV, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Pacific Time and 3 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Variety Channel.
Stimulating talk
gets those synapses in the brain firing really fast.
All the time. The #1 internet talk station where your opinion counts. VoiceAmerica.com.
You are listening to The Patricia Raskin Show. If you wish to call into our program today, please call 1-866-472-5788. That number again is 1-866-472-5788. You may also send an email to patricia@patriciaraskin.com. Now, back to The Patricia Raskin Show.
Hi, everyone. We are back. You are listening to the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show right here on VoiceAmerica.com, America's Voice. My guests are Charlie and Linda Bloom, husband and wife team, and their newest book is An End to Arguing, 101 Valuable Lessons for All Relationships. They've been married since 1972. They were trained as psychotherapists and relationship counselors and have worked with individuals, couples, groups, and organizations since 1975, both in the United States and around the world. They have worked at many different institutes, as well as Esalen, Kripalu, Northern California Mindfulness. And they've written 5 books. And one of their best-selling books is 101 Things I Wish I Knew When I Got Married. They are founders and co-directors of Bloomwork, based in Santa Cruz, California, and their website is bloomwork.com, BLOOMWORK.com. Welcome back, Linda and Charlie. Okay, first question, and then I have many more great ones and some juicy ones too. I want to ask you about people who have repetitive arguments and they get stuck in the cycles of conflict, almost as though it becomes like a pattern. Mm-hmm. How do you help them?
When you keep going over the same material over and over and over again, and you don't get anywhere with it, there usually are some things that are hidden below the surface. You just see the tip of the iceberg, but there's so much more going on. When you have the guidance of a professionally trained and experienced person, you can often drop down to what is it? There may be some very old wounds that are getting reactivated, something from childhood, about feeling controlled or not seen or neglected, or you were compared to your sibling. And this person, this romantic partner, is in your life to reawaken some of these old wounds so that you can finally get it right. If you were neglected and not heard, maybe you were the youngest child and they were running out of energy by the time they had you, that you finally feel valued and prized. If your parents were too micromanaging and you didn't feel free, that you keep coming up against that place that's still in recovery. And they're pointing to it, and then you can identify what it is, why you keep coming back to this over and over and over again, and that you can deal with it and address it at the depth that it needs to be addressed. Because sometimes you just are skimming the surface and you don't go down deep enough to where that real wound is that needs to be attended to.
Do you think at that point you need some help, outside professional help? If you're going around and around like that in circles and you can't get to that deep wound, that may be when you need a professional counselor or a psychologist or psychotherapist. What do you think?
Well, I think it's always important to realize that none of us can meet every challenge in a relationship without some kind of help. It doesn't necessarily have to be a professional. It could be a trusted friend who knows the territory, who has learned a few things. But the statistics tell us that the average couple who finally does get to see or chooses to see a professional therapist for their relationship has been suffering for 6 years on average before they get the help.
Yeah.
And the thing that a lot of people don't understand is that if you just keep going around and around in those cycles, it is diminishing the integrity of the relationship. You're really losing ground. So, we're not in favor of getting on the phone and calling a therapist every time you have an argument. But it is important. The point you're raising is really important to recognize, when do we need to call the cavalry in here, because we ain't going anywhere. We're just spinning our wheels, and this is damaging our relationship.
But it's also damaging their health too, correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
It can be damaging their health as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that we encourage people to agree to, we encourage them to make this agreement that if one of you feels that your relationship requires some outside help, then that's not negotiable. That if one of you feels that way, then that's what you've got to do. Because if you don't accommodate that need, then it's not likely that you're going to get out of that cycle.
Yeah.
So it's important, and a lot of people can make it through without getting professional help. But to know that is available, and that's something that when we start spinning our wheels like that and we can't get out of it on our own, time to consider that as an option.
What ages and stages do you most work with? Is it newlyweds? Is it 5 years out, 10 years out? Is it midlife after 25 years? Is it 40 years of marriage or relationship? What is it? Or all the above?
We find that most of our requests for counseling services and most of the people who attend our workshops are midlife.
So married or in a relationship for 20 years or more?
Yes, they may still be raising children, and they're still raising their careers, and they're at a point where they're anticipating that there could be more for them than what they're experiencing now. And the window of opportunity opens up about how might we expand? How might we deepen our experience of life? How might life have more meaning and purpose, which is right on target for midlife reassessment. And one of the things as they reassess is how well is our relationship working or not? Do you know? Is it really fulfilling both of our needs? Have we become complacent? Have we adjusted to accepting and this is all there is? Or might there be more for us? And they start telling the truth about, I'm longing for more. How about you? We want to roll up your sleeves and get to work with me? And we see if we can have a more fulfilling partnership.
What about younger couples raising children where now their life has gotten so involved with their children that they may be missing out on some of the aspects of their relationship together?
Very, very common. The time period in relationships where people are most vulnerable to losing their marriage is the first year after the first child has been born.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's when the highest percentage of divorces occur during that time period. And it kind of makes sense when you think about it, because here you've got this couple who have just been living in this little bubble together for a while.
Yeah.
No other needs to consider except their own and each other's. And now you introduce this new little irresistible being, literally irresistible, because he or she you cannot be ignored. You cannot resist the call. And it's very likely that one of the two of you, probably the mother, given the nature of the socialization of our culture, is going to be redirecting a lot of her time, care, and attention to this, the being. And that's not easy for the partner who may feel left out to deal with. And it's also not easy for that person to express their feelings because of this. How can I be jealous of my own child? I shouldn't feel this way.
Yes.
So, they stuff those feelings, but then they end up creating distance between the two people or creating arguments. So, it can be a very challenging time. And people really need to be able and willing to speak from their vulnerable feelings about what it's like for them to go through this transition. And it is a serious transition, and it can go either way. I mean, it can bring people closer together, but it can also be divisive if we don't deal with that in a way that is productive.
And you've talked about that throughout this interview, being able to share your feelings and being vulnerable and being received. All right, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I'm going to ask Charlie and Linda this question. Can couples who've been in long-term relationships keep the passion, the sexual intimacy alive? We hear a lot of myths about that. We're going to find out from a couple who's been married and together for many years, and also what they see when they counsel other couples. We're also going to find out about some of the couples that they've counseled and some of the success stories and the growth that has occurred from that. You're listening to the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show. My guests are Charlie and Linda Bloom. Their newest book is An End to Arguing, 101 Valuable Lessons for All Relationships. Charlie and Linda Bloom have been married since 1972. They are trained as psychotherapists and relationship counselors, and they've worked with organizations and couples and individuals all over the world, as well as in this country and at many institutes. And they have 5 books, and their best-selling book is 101 Things I Wish I Knew When I Got Married. So a lot to share. Stay tuned, folks. You don't want to miss the next segment. So stay tuned. You're listening to the Patricia Raskin Show. We'll be right back.
Follow Voice America at facebook.com/Voice America for juicy updates from your favorite radio shows and podcasts.
In the spirit of Have Couch Will Travel, Dr. Carol Lieberman creates a haven of sanity in an increasingly insane world. Each day we are bombarded with news of events that have never crossed our wildest nightmares. Society is spiraling out of control and everyone is reeling from it. But now there's an answer. The best way to keep sane in this insane world is to tune in to Dr. Carol's Couch on Voice America. Dr. Carol, a certified media psychiatrist, will broadcast live from her Beverly Hills office every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Call or log in and get help with whatever is sending you reeling, whenever you need a soothing voice to calm and advise you. That's Dr. Carol's Couch every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time here on America's Voice, voiceamerica.com.
Today, our 40s sit firmly in midlife. We are starting to feel our place and have many productive years ahead. But now is the best time to plan for our future life. Listen for 45 Forward with host Ron Roel. From retirement to health and technology to caring for our parents, no topic is off the table. We don't have a roadmap to our actual future, but we can start to plan more effectively. Tune into 45 Forward, Mondays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Pacific Time, on the Voice America Variety Channel.
The Internet's #1 talk station. #1 talk station. VoiceAmerica.com.
You are listening to The Patricia Raskin Show. If you wish to call into our program today, please call 1-866-472-5788. That number again is 1-866-472-5788. You may also send an email to patricia@patriciaraskin.com. Now, back to The Patricia Raskin Show.
Hi, everyone. We are back. You are listening to the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show. My guests are Linda and Charlie Bloom, who've been married since 1972. They are trained as psychotherapists and relationship counselors, and they work with organizations and groups and individuals and couples internationally and nationally since 1975. They have 5 best-selling books, and their first one, their international bestseller, 101 Things I Wish I Knew When I Got Married, Simple Lessons to Make Love Last, over 100,000 copies sold. We're talking about their latest book, An End to Arguing, 101 Valuable Lessons for All Relationships. Okay, so here's my first big question. Can relationships keep their passion and their flame and their sexual intimacy after many years of being together?
I'm happy to report that it is very possible, 70s, 80s, and above. When we did our research for Secrets of Great Marriages, we interviewed a lot of couples who had been together for a long time, who were in that age group. And they reported to us that the sexual flame was still alive. It was different from when they were younger. It wasn't about intercourse and orgasms and erections so much anymore. But they had kept touch, kissing, hugging, caressing, massage, the bringing pleasure to each other's body to delight each other, because it's such a handy way to show love. And we were really heartened and glad to hear from these people who were in the graduating classes way ahead of us that we could look forward to having the sexual passion alive and well. They told us that their relationship as a whole was passionate and alive and growing. And so the sexual aspect could be too. This is predicated, of course, on not letting the incompletions clog up the channel between you two. The people who are conflict phobic aren't dealing with the issues, and they mount up over time and they clog up the channel. And that will inhibit the natural, sexual, sensual juices from flowing. So I see the end to arguing as a very direct path of staying current with the issues, creating understanding, as allowing the sexual relationship to flourish in every decade.
Charlie, anything to add to that?
I really want to underscore the last thing that Linda said about incompletions. When we use that term, what we're referring to is the unfinished business that has not been adequately processed or addressed in the relationship. Those times when there's a disappointment or where there's an unacknowledged feeling of shame or pain or resentment. And those feelings, when they are not adequately attended to and expressed and dealt with, Linda used the metaphor of clogging up, our emotional arteries. And that's what they do. They block our ability to experience deep levels of connection and intimacy, because it's always in the background and sometimes even in the foreground. So we really encourage people to keep things as clean and as current as you can. Don't let grudges accumulate. Don't withhold feelings because you don't want to you don't want to feel bad. You don't want to cause the other person to be upset. There's so many different rationales and justifications that we use to not deal with some of those feelings of disappointment and upset. So when we can keep those channels open and clean, we're much more likely to feel those emotional desires. We're much more likely to resuscitate those feelings of attraction that maybe have been in the background.
Isn't it true that a lot of love is how that other person makes you feel, or how you feel around the other person, so that when you start feeling like a doormat or just like a friend, or or you're not getting the sort of the attention and the emotional part you need met? Is that a big part of the problem? And of course, arguing can lead to that too, correct?
Yes, I love the quote from Ken Kais when he says, "When I say I love you, what I'm really saying is I love how I feel when I'm with you." That it makes us feel good to have the exchange of love. And the channel needs to be open and free flowing. That's why it's so essential to deal with these issues so it doesn't keep the flow from going back and forth. That I feel good about myself. I feel understood. I feel seen. I feel heard. I feel acknowledged. I feel validated. You see my signature strengths and you see my weak suits too, but you love me anyway. And we are in each other's life to bring out the best in each other.
All right. We only have like 3 minutes left. So if you want to share a story or just give us your closing thoughts, something that's very uplifting that you've seen in your work, in your career.
Well, there's so many. I mean, and first of all, I want to say that we don't see ourselves as being in the business of keeping couples together. We are wanting to support them in having the outcome that is best for them. And sometimes what that means is coming to a place of recognizing that, maybe we've just kind of had our relationship run its course, and we're both complete with moving on to the next level. Most people don't come to us with that expectation or with that desire, but sometimes they come and they don't know whether to keep hanging in there and trying to make it work or not. I'm thinking in particular, one of the things that can be really challenging is when a couple comes and they have had a betrayal. And sometimes they think that there's just no way, this is unforgivable. And sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes what they thought was the end of the relationship is not. And that's very satisfying when that happens.
All right, we've got 2 minutes. So just a quick closing thoughts, maybe 30 seconds from each of you. Well, now we've got 1 minute. So just to tell us quickly, just a couple of, maybe one tip, one thing that's really essential. And then we want to tell people certainly to go to your website, bloomworks.com. Go ahead.
Hold your vision in a lofty place.
Thank you.
Have intention to meet your vision, but there is so much available in terms of our own personal growth and development. Don't miss the extraordinary opportunity to grow into who we can be with the assistance of a partner who's on that path with us.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Charlie, you got like 20 seconds.
Hang in there. Keep in mind, all relationships have challenges. You've met challenges in your life. This is another one. Don't give up.
Thank you both. It was enlightening and inspiring and wonderful. Thank you. And you're both very inspiring as a couple. Thank you. Stay on the line for a minute. All right, folks, let's wrap up this edition of the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show right here on voiceamerica.com. You can find Linda and Charlie Bloom. Again, it's bloomworks.com, correct? Okay. All right, and you can find me, Patricia, at patriciaraskin.com, if you'd like a copy of my newsletter. If you would like to create your own podcast so you can get your incredible message out, I've interviewed over 5,000 people, and I'd love to help you. Patricia at patriciaraskin.com. Remember, stay healthy, stay happy, get the support you need, and know you can make your dreams come true. Until next time, I'm Patricia Raskin. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of The Patricia Raskin Show. Be sure to join Patricia Raskin and another amazing guest next Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Variety Channel. Have an outstanding week.